Welcome, welcome. I'm Kimmy and this is Queen's Clouds. Welcome to my channel where I give you a look into what it's like to build a flower-based business. As we all know, the regulations around flower are garbage, trash, shit, bull, whatever you want to call it. There are so many restrictions with advertising, selling weed, even on social media platforms that I've had trouble. I'm pretty sure anyone else building a business within this industry have had trouble. So in this video, I want to give some tips and tricks about what you can do to sell your product without getting taken down, getting flagged, getting arrested, being called a pothead, being called lazy, whatever. So one major way that I've looked into getting around this problem is through doing live events, like vendor events, pop-ups, spring markets, thrifting events, handmade events. I recently did an after hours night market, which was really fun. That was actually my first event that I ever did, and I had an amazing time there. And that's what really sparked my interest and my passion for doing events. Passion, if you want to include doing 3 events, passion. But it's fun, and I already paid for all the shit, so it's like, might as well. So far, I have done 3 events that were successful, depending on what you want to call or deem success. So if you want some advice from somebody who barely knows what they're talking about, then you have come to the perfect place. And it's probably a sign that you should like and subscribe to support this channel and help me grow. Without any further ado, here is what I have learned from doing 3 vendor events within the cannabis industry. So we're going to start with the preparation for the event. The amount of time, money, energy, focus, effort, sweat, tears, stress shits that I had to go through to be prepared for this first event is absolutely fucking insane. I was stressed, super tired, working a 9 to 5 while trying to prepare for this event. And I would come home every day and I would just get to work. From work to work, keep it pushing. Don't take your shoes off. Don't get comfortable. Don't hit a bowl. Go straight back to the office and start working. Like, that shit really put me to sleep for like the next week. I was exhausted. The reason why I was just working, work every single day was because I needed to make sure that I had all the right equipment, tools, and inventory for this event. Like, I really wanted this event to go well because the way I saw it, this was gonna set the tone for events in the future. So if I could get this first one right, don't try to take this advice from me because I know that it's flawed. But if I could get this first one right, all of them afterwards will be a fucking breeze.
Delusional?
Now I know a little bit better now I know a lot better actually. That's unrealistic and I shouldn't have expected that. But I still had aspirations to make sure that I got this done as well as possible. Like, if I failed at this, it will be through no fault of my own. Aside from the amount of time and energy that it spent to prepare, it was also just very financially taxing, super expensive. And I guess it doesn't have to be if you're just gonna go and get like a table or 2 and just throw your shit on there and sell it like that. But I wanted my booth to be an experience. Now, I watched tons and tons of YouTube videos and to get tips and just learn basic general things about what I would need. And one thing they said that was really important was your booth setup. It had to draw people in. So I needed to make sure that whatever I had was good enough for people to come and stop by and come in. So with that, I bought a lot. I had to get a tent, tables, tablecloths, things to display my products with. I got like thank you cards and just a lot. It costed so much more than I thought it was going to cost. So make sure you watch the prices on everything you get because you're probably going to end up spending more than you. And then you also have to consider the vendor fee, which is often like $50 to $150. I paid $150 for the first event. Damn! I didn't know what was a little bit a small vendor fee or what was a large vendor fee. Honestly, I was just happy to have my application accepted because I really thought, oh, you don't have that many Instagram followers, nobody knows you, why would they accept your application? But they want your money anyway, so I guess it's whoever's willing to pay. When I was specifically preparing for my inventory, there was a lot of stuff that I had to make. See, I already had some products. I had some rolling trays, some ashtrays, some jars already made, but I really wanted to, up the ante and put my best foot forward here. So I was making new trays, experimenting, creating new things while I was getting ready for this event. And I didn't really know what would sell yet. Like, I didn't know if it would be the ashtrays that sold the best, or if it's going to be the rolling trays, the stash jars that sold the best. I had my money on the rolling trays selling the best because I really feel like those show off a lot more artwork than the ashtrays, and the stash jars really can, because it's just more surface area. There's more places to do cool shit with the resin, obviously. So I thought that it would be those, but to my surprise, it was actually the stash jars and the rolling trays that sold the best. So that was, a surprise for me, but I think I understand why. It's probably because they're just lower ticket items. It's easier to commit to, an $18 ashtray versus a $30 rolling tray. So maybe it's a pricing thing, I'm looking into it now. It's just something that I learned. Another thing that goes with prep is figuring out, how you're gonna get there if you need help to set up. This was my first show, so I did want some help. I had my dad and my boyfriend who were helping me out and setting up the tent for me and, hauling stuff back and forth from the venue. So that was really nice to have. Really good to have someone else with you so that you could actually leave your tent and go look at the other vendors. Like, if it was just me, of course I wouldn't have been able to just leave my stuff, my merchandise out. There are thieves. I did get some hints and people warning me and warning us vendors about thieves and things that have been stolen already. So yeah, I wouldn't have been able to leave my booth alone. So it was nice for me to be able to have my boyfriend, my dad watch the tent while I went and looked around at the vendors a little bit and talked and networked some, because, being at these events, you still want to go and talk to the vendors and let them know about yourself, but the customers are still the priority. So you have to have balance of both. Speaking of the setup and the booth and the tables themselves, I would say that the setup is probably the most stressful part of the entire event, because you just have all these questions already. You're like, is there going to be a lot of foot traffic? Is my product going to fit in well? Is it going to sell? Am I going to be the only one who doesn't sell? Are all the vendors going to notice that I'm the only one who doesn't sell and then feel bad for me? So many questions while you're setting up. This is also where you figure out or find out whether you've done your packing and your prepping correctly, or if you're missing anything, because if you're missing anything, it's basically going to come in right here while you're setting up. So when I was packing and prepping, I basically had a checklist in my head. I didn't really have one, going on any physical piece of paper, but I had a checklist in my head of everything that I was going to need. And I went through the process of setting up in my mind so that I would know everything that I was going to need. And as I checked things off, I put them in the bin. And luckily, I had everything I needed. There was no reason to stress about that. So it was pretty cool. It's pretty fun. My setup from the first event, it's pretty bare bones, though I did try to make it a little bit more poppy and showy for people to come through. Got some leaves up, some vines. I got a banner made. I made sure to put up the tent just so I could block off my area a little bit better. I did have a custom tablecloth made, but it did not get there in time, but that's perfectly fine. I'll just use it for future events since I already paid for it. Having a good booth setup is super important. It has to be strategically eye-catching so the customers can come all the way inside the booth and kind of get enamored and immersed in the whole vibe. I think it kind of just helps with the selling process. It makes people excited for what you sell, and you have just more control over your booth area, so you can do what you want and maneuver the way you want to. For my first few events, I did a setup where you basically had to come all the way inside of the booth in order to see the product. And I thought that was probably like the best option, because I figured if you're all the way inside the booth, there's nothing to distract you. You're better able to talk to the customers and, build a personal connection with them. But I noticed that people are just more reluctant to come into your shop and get a closer look if they have to walk all the way in. So what I'm gonna do for my upcoming events is I'm gonna set up my booth to where the products are facing outward towards the customer instead of them having to walk towards me. Because I feel like people sometimes they don't really want to do all that. They just want to like window shop, as you say. So I'm gonna give them the opportunity to do that. I also noticed that a lot of other vendors did it that way, and it seemed to work well for them. So these events are also just generally a learning opportunity for how you can sell to customers and what's most effective. Because I thought that having them come all the way into the booth would be more effective, but turns out it's probably more effective if they're able to just kind of like window shop and then have something catch their eye. This also helps with the display of my products and having them look really good, because my products look specifically like 10 times better with the sunlight. So if I can catch some of that sunlight by putting my products closer out from under the tent, then that kind of just makes them way more desirable to buy. I also learned that having some sort of incentive for people to come towards your shop is a good idea. I didn't have any incentives, but I think that one that I want to implement is going to be like having a little spinning wheel chart with different prizes on it that people can spin on the table facing outward towards the customers. So they can spin it, and then they will have to come inside to come and get their prize. So then that makes them look around even more, keeping them there longer, enticing them more, yada, 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 onward, make that fucking sale big. So once the setup is done, comes the fun part, which is speaking with the customers, selling the product, educating people on your brand. That's really one of my favorite parts, because it really gets you excited to know that people actually give some sort of a fuck about what you do. I learned pretty quickly that it's pretty awkward to stare at people as they just walk by or walk into your booth. Like, I know I have the habit to just want to like keep my head down. The social anxiety kind of fucks with me sometimes.
I'll keep cutting. You say when.
But that's pretty awkward. So like if you see someone walking by, say hi, what's up, come on in, come take a look, spin the wheel for fun if you have it up. So I think that definitely helps. And if they actually do come inside my booth, I hand them a flyer, and I also might hand them like a coupon to get something off of my website for like 15% off. I also give them the whole sales pitch of something along the lines of, welcome in, everything you see is handmade by me. I also do custom orders, and if you have any questions, please let me know. So I say something like that to them just to kind of get them interested and let them know exactly what I do. And then I also open up the room, or I guess the conversation, for questions if they're interested. Don't just stare at them as they walk in. That's pretty awkward. Definitely say something. I've experimented with doing both, the not saying anything and then saying something, and the saying something may seem harder, but what's actually harder is watching them walk out of your store with just like, all right. That's way harder than just saying hi, So that's what I do. I smile, I make them feel welcome. Sometimes they'll ask to record, and I'll be like, oh yeah, can you tag me? Try to have a conversation with them and build relationships so that they know you, they know who you are and what you do. One of the main things that I had to deal with is failing. I was terrified on my first event that it was going to go terribly and I was going to make like $10, and I was going to be really hurt because I spent $150 on the event fee, on the vendor fee. And that would just discourage me from doing things. But it didn't. It went well. I made a good amount of money. I was really happy. It was a great night. So with the next two events, I was hoping they'd be the exact same. I shouldn't have hoped that. I knew better. They weren't the exact same, though they were still really good learning opportunities. I didn't make as much or even close to what I had wanted to make. And it felt a little bit like a waste of time, but I had to understand that these are still just learning opportunities for me, because for these 2 events, I did them all on my own. Like I didn't have any help. People had things to do. They had work. They wanted to sleep. So I just went up and did it on my own. And for that, I was really proud of myself. I had a good time. I met some people, and it was just a really good learning opportunity and experience for me, which is what I appreciated it for, since I couldn't appreciate it for making money. So out of the 3 events that I've done so far, I was really only happy with one of them, which is the first event that I did, the night market. So much fun. I'm actually applied to be a vendor for the same night market again. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I get approved for that in August. For the first event, I didn't profit, but I did make really good revenue. Now, I wasn't upset that I didn't profit because I definitely spent a lot more just prepping for the event than I thought I would. And that was just necessity. Like I needed a tent, I needed tables, needed tablecloths, and I wanted to make sure that everything I got was as high quality as I could afford it, because I planned on doing this all throughout the summer this year. So I didn't mind spending a little pretty penny on the tent, especially because I had to make sure that shit didn't just blow the fuck away. Because you know how these tents be popping up, blowing away, tumbleweeding with just a small gust of wind. So I wanted to make sure that everything was as high quality as possible, as I was saying, so that I could use it in the future over and over again. I didn't have problems with things just breaking and being super cheap. Nobody wants to deal with that, especially when they're already stressed out. The last 2 events that I did were a little bit more discouraging. They were like less foot traffic. I think the venues were kind of shitty, and it just wasn't as well marketed as the first one. I also didn't pay as much. Like for the second event, I paid like $15, and for the third event, it was free. So that should have maybe clued me in on something. But yeah, the first one was really well marketed through social media. I was constantly seeing the ads for people to come through, and I was constantly posting as well. So you could tell that they're professionals. Where you choose to vend that is super important, is what I'm learning. And it's not just, making sure that people are coming through, because for the third event, there was a lot. It was pretty good foot traffic, it was pretty good. There were a few people, like maybe 100, 200 people who came through, but their intention wasn't really to buy anything. They were kind of just there for the vibes. With the first event, the night market that we did, people were there to shop, that was their intention. They came here for like thrifted clothes, handmade goods, tattoos, body jewelry, teeth jewelry, and for the vibe. So people came ready with their wallets open, and they were really ready to spend on some cool ass shit that they don't normally see on like Amazon or fucking Temu or Shein. So I think the intent definitely on why people are actually coming to the event is important. So I'm gonna keep that in mind when I'm choosing out events, and maybe to pay a little bit more, especially if you're going to be spending hours upon hours with your time there. You have to consider your time as well as the money. So I'll definitely be taking that into consideration. So for the last 2 events, though I made very few sales, like for the first event, I probably made like $20 and 1 sale. And then third event actually. And then for my last event that I just did, which was about a week ago, I only made like $7.
Oh my God!
Even though the sales part of the last 2 events didn't go as well as I wanted to, I did learn a lot from them both. Like I said, I had to do these 2 events on my own. One was about 30 minutes away from me, and the other was about like an hour and a half away from me. So I was pretty nervous about kind of packing everything up and figuring out how I was going to make everything work. But I made it work, and I was proud of myself that I had made it that far, even though I didn't make that many sales, Even though I didn't make the sales that I wanted to make, I did get to network. I got to practice speaking to customers. I got to work on my sales pitch. I worked on how I make my product description sound. I was able to get more Instagram followers because there were a lot of influencers at both of those events who were going around recording, posting, and tagging me. So I was able to get some social media, some increases in social media. That was great. Knowledge on the best way to set up booths, price products, and interact with customers, and a whole bunch of other shit. Of course, I got a free dab hit. That was great. All that to say, don't take like the first few events too seriously when it comes to monetary gain in your revenue. You're still learning which events are worth going to. I would say that the last two, they weren't financially worth going to, but they were definitely worth going to for other things, and I can appreciate that as well as financial gain, even though financial gain is the goal of the bitch. The money is the mission, the money is the vision. So I'm really happy that I'm really starting to get an idea of what works for me, and like everything in life, practice will make better. So I figure if I keep on going, I keep on practicing and implementing what I learned, eventually I'll be one of those vending bitches that are out there every single weekend making hundreds. I'm sure you all want to know exactly what I made on each event, and this is just revenue. I'm not counting profit because, not gonna hold you, I don't know exactly how much I spent. I only know the ballpark, but I do know exactly how much I made. So for the first event that I went to, this was the night market. This was also the best event. I had a great time. I made $340. For the second event that I went to, this was more of just like a farmer's market kind of deal. It was pretty small. It was like on a street corner. Wasn't much foot traffic. I made like $20 and made one sale. It was a rolling tray. But yeah, it was something. And then this last event that I went to, it was actually a sesh out in LA. So I thought I was gonna make some money there, because this is where the smokers are. This is where the flower people are. Like, it's supposed to be my people. But I made $7. I sold like 4 stickers and like that was it. So yeah. I also bought a $6 blunt. So yeah, I basically made $1 there. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope this gave you a realistic view into what it's like to get into vending and doing small vendor events for your small business. Everything that I learned from each event was super valuable, and I will definitely be applying it to the future events that I do. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to support me, support this business. That's absolutely free, and I would really appreciate it. Thanks, and see you next time.